Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Related topic, blowing up this hour, a federal judge in Washington today discovered the government deported an immigrant mother and daughter. Both of them are plaintiffs in the asylum case the judge was overseeing. So the judge demanded that the administration turn the plane around and threatened that the attorney general be held in contempt. Wow. Wow. Judge Soboroff has been following the deportation stories for us from the beginning. Tell us about this judge and tell us about this family. Where are they? How are they? And are they coming back?
They could very well actually, Nicole, as I'm talking to you right now, be in the air from Texas to El Salvador. And when this family lands in El Salvador, they're going to get back on another plane, or the plane literally will be turned around per the judge's orders and head back to the United States. The larger story here, the context is, this was a case that was brought by the ACLU with 8 plaintiffs in Washington, D.C., challenging the Attorney General. We talked a lot about this with the family separations, challenging the Attorney General's much stricter rules and regulations for actually claiming asylum now if you want to stay in the United States. And that involves no longer being able to bring claims as you once were with regard to domestic violence and gang violence. Some of the main drivers that people flee places like El Salvador and Honduras and Guatemala to come to the United States for. And so to hear this judge today, I didn't actually listen into the case, but to read the transcript, to read what he said, and in fact, I want to just read you a little bit of it. He said, in its rush to deport as many immigrants as possible, the Trump administration is putting these women and children in grave danger of being raped, beaten, or killed. And he quite literally said to the government, get these people back here as soon as you can. You can't deport plaintiffs in the middle of a case when we're adjudicating this rule in the first place.
Tell us if this judge, is this the first time I was reading from the transcript as well. He said this is pretty outrageous. His name is U.S. District Judge Emmett G. Sullivan.
That's right.
And just to pick up on just his personal reaction, I'm not happy about this at all. This is not acceptable. I mean, is he an outlier? Has this been the reaction in other cases that have ended up before federal judges?
No, actually, it hasn't. Nicole, it's a great question. Dana Sabra, who's adjudicating the Miss L case, which is the case about family separations here in California, just last week called the government's plan, or lack of a plan, I guess we should say, to reunite the remaining 572 kids that were separated from their parents by the Trump administration, quote unquote, unacceptable. And quite literally, in an hour and 15 minutes from now, we're expecting the government to file, because the judge ordered them in a separate case, a new point person to reunite the remaining 572 kids that are still out there over 2 months after we first got inside those facilities down in South Texas and got a look at what the separated kids have gone through. And I just want to be really clear. These 8 plaintiffs in this case were not separated from their parents, but ultimately when the judge decides whether or not the asylum claims, the new asylum claim and the guidelines that Jeff Sessions has put through are suitable, it could affect everybody that claims asylum, including separated families.
And they all face deportation, whether they're separated or not. Let me ask you one more question, Jacob. These are disproportionately women and children who are escaping the 2 things that were eliminated, right? Gang violence and domestic violence, domestic abuse.
That you're 100% correct, and historically, the people that would come to this country seeking asylum were unaccompanied minors, like we've talked a lot about, and women and children with their families. And that Jeff Sessions actually handpicked involved a woman and her child fleeing one of these exact circumstances to basically overturn it.
It is Friday, the 10th of August of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays because we are all Nighthawks in the diner of life, indeed. Oh, have a French 77. It is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, and that is the premier drink here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. There will be many more at the chef's table, so if you're not ready for one now, you will then. Trust me. Jeff Sessions handpicked a mother and her child to deport, to send a message. The craven evilness of that deed. There's nothing banal about that evil. And when this is all said and done, I don't really care anymore. There's no need to make nice with Nazis, racist, demagogic Nazis, and this is what Jeff Sessions is, and this whole crew of idiots. Oh man, Trump going off about the Mueller probe, and I got to tell you, the guy, everybody says he's insane. Yeah, well, I guess that's one way of avoiding the subject. The fact is that this guy should have never been president to begin with. And this rule about, you don't bring charges or make public a crime in 60 days before an election, but if your name is Hillary Clinton, that's different. And in Trump's mind, Hillary Clinton started all this. It's like, she's Goldstein, of course. It plays to his base. And he's also being fed this BS by idiots around him like Bannon. And yeah, Bannon's still talking to him. You know he is. But more importantly, Stephen Miller. But back to Jeff Sessions. How evil is it to put a mother and child, on a plane and send them back to the country that they escaped from because, Honduras, because they're women and they're lying about this physical sexual abuse. They're women. Or, worse, there's no such thing as sexual abuse in this addled brain. The evil Keebler elf. So, contempt of court. And, we're going to argue the constitutionality. Can you hold an attorney general in contempt of court? What about implied immunity? You know what? Implied immunity should go the way of, the dodo. No one is above the law. Implied immunity is to prevent, scurrilous, not true charges. That's all it's meant to be. If you commit a crime, you go to jail. And this guy is committing a crime. Oh, there's no crime about putting a mother and child on a plane and deporting them without due process? Yeah, there is. Boy, I just got to say, it just drives me up a wall. And jail, I have to say, jail is too good. Prison is too good for these evil monsters. And yes, they are treasonous, they are seditious, they are traitors, and yes, also treason has to have, a few witnesses to it. And it's been met. So put that under your hat. Alrighty, well, what's on the rest of the menu? There's so much news out there, I just had to put a cap on it, I tell you that. I just have to. We have to curate a show here. All right, on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, the Trump administration issues a new tax scam rule that benefits Trump. What a coincidence. So convenient. Joni Ernst claims the $3.1 million the National Rifle Association spent to elect her, That doesn't count. She doesn't take money from the NRA, and the money they gave her doesn't count. And the Pentagon really doesn't like Trump's ridiculous Space Force idea. What an idiot. Johnny Quest. He's thinking of Johnny Quest. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where a judge in Arkansas makes $147,000 a year for turning poor people into indentured servants. And move over Pizzagate. Portland's famous Voodoo Doughnut is the new home to a far-right child sex ring conspiracy theory. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice the chat room link at the rightish of the page, monitored by roaring girl Kelly Lincoln, and she does that quite diligently, as I mentioned. And even though she has a real life and has to go to work and take care of things, you know, she takes care of it. She's often there in real time, as well as other people who can help you out if it is your first time. If you go and look at the leftish side of the page, at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice the contribute, donate buttons. They are definitely placed there because we are unable to do this without you. Your generosity keeps the lights blinking in their proper order. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that platform, and we are very thankful that he does. Follow Netroots Radio on Facebook. Zuckerberg does what he wants to do. I take care of that. So does Kelly, and really, Kelly takes care of it mostly. Yeah, I just have to. I don't know. Thank you, Kelly. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I'm also, of course, on Daily Co's and as Justice Putnam, and that is where the show notes and links diary is posted about 10 minutes before showtime. An integral part to the show, by the way. And now you can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West. Just type in West Coast Cookbook and it'll show Cookbook West. You can also look for us over on Facebook at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And podcasts of the show can be had by way of Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, TuneIn, YouTube. I haven't done anything on iHeart because I hate iHeart. I guess I'll put us on there. I don't know. I still hate iHeart. But you can find us really wherever fine podcasts can be found. All right, we better get on with the show. I mean, time's a flying, as it always does. This first article is out of Share Blue Media by Dan Desai Martin. Now, Trump makes no secret that he's bilking the American people for every dime he can while in the Oval Office. Now, a new Treasury Department rule governing last year's GOP tax scam will make sure Trump can keep even more of his ethically dubious gains. The New York Times explains that the new rule could wind up benefiting Trump's real estate empire. What? He doesn't have a real estate empire. He has a branding empire. Jesus. Okay. At issue is how the Treasury Department decides to interpret the tax scam's 20% deduction for pass-through entities, which we know are businesses structured so their profits are taxed as individual income for their owners. In a stark break from tradition and ethics, Trump refused to completely divest of his companies when he became president. This has created massive conflicts of interest since Trump has the power to use U.S. policy to enrich himself. Now, how much will Trump gain from this new rule exactly? Of course, we don't know. He hides his taxes from public scrutiny. Well, of course, Mueller knows. I'm sure Mueller knows where the money's coming from. And they know exactly what this fellow is about. This guy is acting with impunity because he knows he's a crook. He doesn't think that the law will ever apply to him. He is now above the law. And at his whim, he can do what he wants to do or not do what he doesn't want to do. Divest of my companies? How am I supposed to make money off of that if I divest from my companies? And they call Hillary Clinton the corrupt one. You know, I'm still trying to figure out where they get that. Why is it that the groups who want to make sure that, you know, like schoolgirls are not kidnapped and raped, they're always the ones that are considered to be corrupt? Oh, you're skimming off the top. You do good or you're no doing good. You're just skimming off the top. Every time. Hillary Clinton tried the Clinton Global Initiative made sure that AIDS drugs were delivered around the world to poor people. There's something bad about that, apparently. But you talk to a Trump Cult 45 member, and this is sticking. What Trump is doing is sticking it to the liberals. Okay. Are they Americans? Or are they just living here? That's what I want to know. Even before the new rule came out, the pass-through provision was already unfairly tilted to the wealthy. Most of his benefits go to Americans making more than $1 million a year. The GOP tax scam already disproportionately favors wealthy Wall Street tycoons with massive corporate tax breaks. Rich corporations are shoveling the money they get from these tax breaks directly into stock buyback schemes, which benefit their wealthy investors and not their workers, because the workers are cogs in a machine. They are dispensable. We can always get a new cog where that one came from. Probably cheaper, too, because it's more of an idiot cog. Meanwhile, workers have seen their wages fall after adjusting for inflation ever since the tax scam was signed into law. That's funny. I remember penciling out how much I was making. And, I work for people. I mean, sometimes you make less when you work for yourself. Isn't that funny? But, I really hadn't, even adjusting for inflation and cost of living and all that. I mean, you have to. My wages stayed stagnant from about 1978 until, except for some jumps, but let's be clear, when I was working for people. It stayed stagnant from about 78 right to, I don't know, maybe 95, 96, 98. Yep. Then I started making a little bit more money. But that was only because, working for myself, and I worked hard. Okay, while millions of Americans continue to struggle, Trump and his cronies are busy making out like bandits. Trump has funneled taxpayer dollars into his own properties by spending nearly a third of his first term on vacation there, and the freewheeling corruption doesn't stop at the White House doors. It also extends to Trump's cabinet. Now, we already went through about Wilbur Ross being exposed for having siphoned about $123 million from past clients. HUD Secretary Ben Carson blew $31,000 on a fancy new dining table set for his office. You need a dining table set in your office? Can't you just eat at your desk? Okay. Embattled Education Secretary Betsy DeVos refuses to fly the American flag on her $40 million yacht so she can dodge millions in taxes. Well, have you seen the size of that yacht? Can you imagine the tax burden on it? They can't afford that. No. Financial scandals also plagued former HHS Secretary Tom Price, former Veterans Affairs Secretary David Shulkin, former EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, all three of whom were forced to resign in disgrace. Now Trump stands to benefit yet again from the policy of his own Treasury Department. In this culture of corruption, the most surprising news would be if anything happened in Washington that did not benefit Trump's bottom line. Oliver Willis of Share Blue Media brings us this next offering here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the diner of life. Joni Ernst pushes the NRA agenda. You know that, don't you? And she insists that this has nothing to do with the millions that the gun extremist group spends on her behalf. Oh, no, I don't. None of that money has ever influenced. What money? These opinions I have been fully formed by my own experience. Well, the NRA has spent millions, about 3.1 million to be exact, and but she says the vast sums of that money spent in her favor do nothing to influence her extremist positions on guns. At a recent town hall, an audience member confronted Ernst over her co-sponsorship of the Stop School Violence Act, which purports to address school safety, but completely ignores the problems of guns in schools. The omission is glaring. Especially glaring that the bill, which has passed the House but not the Senate, was proposed after the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High in Parkland, Florida. In a video posted by March for Our Lives, Iowa, a young man is seen asking Ernst if her choice to back such a weak bill had any connection to the $6 million in support she and Marco Rubio have received from the NRA. We don't receive dollars from the NRA, Ernst replied disingenuously. That would be illegal, and I'd be driving a nicer car. Well, that's probably true. She may have just accepted rubles instead of dollars. And, trust me, she drives a nicer car. If the NRA has never written a check to her campaign directly, then Ernst is technically telling the truth, but Ernst has benefited from more than $3.1 million in NRA spending over her career. As the New York Times has documented, and Rubio has received $3.3 million, which means the questioner was right to say that the two together have received $6 million. Now, some or all of that $6 million may have been spent on independent ads the NRA ran to support Ernst and Rubio's campaigns rather than on to direct contributions, but the candidates still benefited from that spending. Well, even then, the ads weren't paid for in dollars, they were paid for in rubles. $30 million they spent. Twice, almost triple the amount they did in any other election ever in the history of the NRA's extremist gun lobbying. So Joni Ernst is trying to have it both ways, of course. She may be trying to distance herself from all that, but her record and rhetoric show that she moves in lockstep with the NRA and will continue to do so. She's got probably about 3.1 million reasons to. up here at the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is another article out of Share Blue Media and also by Oliver Willis. The Trump administration is moving forward with plans for a so-called Space Force, even as top figures at the Pentagon see the idea as a waste of time and resources. The Trump administration has been pushing for a completely new branch of the military, something the existing military has not asked for. The LA Times gets to the heart of the unnecessary push, noting Trump has never explained at length why he favors creation of a Space Force as an additional military service, but the concept often draws loud cheers at rallies. Well, yeah, of course it does. We were promised jetpacks, and we may finally be getting them. Chanting at a rally is not a serious or practical reason for a massive new bureaucracy, and the Pentagon knows it. Now, Trump would need Congress to create the new branch he keeps talking about at his rallies, but with the Pentagon already doing what they can to handle Trump's ranting, Congress won't likely make a strong push for it. Trump's own defense secretary, Jim Mattis, said in a letter to Congress he opposed the creation of a new military service and additional organizational layers at a time when we were focused on reducing overhead and integrating joint war-fighting functions. Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson told reporters last year the Pentagon is complicated enough without the increased bureaucracy of a Space Force. She added, this will make it more complex, add more boxes to the organization chart, and cost more money. If I had more money, I would put it into lethality, not bureaucracy. Oh, I want to blow things up with what we got now. And the complaints and criticisms continue. Just absolutely devastating criticisms by the people who know. Space Force is a rallying cry Trump uses as a cheap applause line at his rallies. In between offering childish nicknames for Democrats, whining about cable news, and calling immigrants animals, it is not a serious idea or something the military wants to be wasting time on. The Pentagon knows that, and they do not support Trump on it. Indeed. Well, let's get to our break, and when we come back from said break, we will go through weather from around the world, and then we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, That's Impossible. These are the 15 things you need for a Mission Impossible movie. 1, a 4-person team, point guy, tech guy, woman, and swing specialist. 2, a multi-layered MacGuffin, that is to say, something or someone you have to get in order to get something or someone else. 3, administrative pressure on the team. 4, 3 types of chases, foot chase, motorcycle, and car. 5, at least one team member with questionable allegiance. 6, a first act mission where something goes wrong. 7, a second act heist. 8, detailed plans that 9 must be changed on the fly due to unforeseeable normal events. 10, a game of mask, who's wearing the mask. 11, an insane Ethan Hunt climbing sequence. 12, a solid script. 13, a cool director, someone with vision, not just a company player. 14, Ving Rhames, and increasingly Simon Pegg. And 15, Tom Cruise. That's it. Those are your puzzle pieces. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to put these pieces together so that they rise organically from your conflict and do not feel like the stale execution of a formula. That's a tough mission, though not tough enough for writer-director Christopher McQuarrie. Having written Bryan Singer's beloved The Usual Suspects, McQuarrie met Cruise when he co-wrote Singer's 2008 film, Valkyrie. McQuarrie then wrote and directed Cruise in 2012's Jack Reacher, and then Cruise tapped him for 2015's Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. That makes McQuarrie Cruise's golden boy behind 2 action franchises and the first director to do Mission Impossible double duty. Now with Fallout, McQuarrie gives the MI series something new. A sense of confidence for the whole franchise. Fallout directly follows up the events and characters of Rogue Nation while fleshing out threads laid down in Ghost Protocol and even references De Palma's Impossible. He takes all these pieces and deals them out with a magician's hand, sometimes showing you your card, sometimes pulling it from behind your ear with a satisfying, wait for it, mission accomplished. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is a message from CDC.
After hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods, standing water and excess moisture help mold grow in your home, garage, and other structures. When you return to a home that has been flooded, know that you're likely to have mold. Mold puts your family's health at risk. If you have mold growing in your home, you should clean it up and fix other water problems, such as leaks in roofs, walls, or plumbing. Keep your children and pets out of affected areas until you've cleaned. Control moisture in your home to prevent mold growth. To remove mold growth from hard surfaces, use commercial products, soap and water, or a bleach solution of no more than 1 cup of household laundry bleach in 1 gallon of water. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. Never mix bleach with ammonia or other household cleaners. It will produce dangerous, toxic fumes. Open windows and doors to provide fresh air.
For more information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. Dating apps like Bumble and Tinder can help singles couple up. But online dating, it's also great for scientists.
There's so much folk wisdom about dating and very little hard evidence.
Elizabeth Brooke is a computational social scientist at the University of Michigan. She recently used online dating data to answer this question.
What does it mean for someone to be out of your league? And is there a way that we can study that using the techniques of network science?
Brooke and her colleague Mark Newman studied who swapped messages with whom on a popular online dating platform in the month of January 2014. They categorize users by desirability using PageRank, one of the algorithms behind search technology. Essentially, if you receive a dozen messages from desirable users, you must be more desirable than someone who receives the same number of messages from average users. And then they asked, how far out of their league do online daters tend to go when pursuing a partner?
I think people are optimistic realists.
In other words, they found that both men and women tended to pursue mates just 25% more desirable than themselves.
So they're being optimistic, but they're also taking into account their own relative position within this overall desirability hierarchy.
All the graphs and charts are in the journal Science Advances. And the study did have a few more lessons for people on the market.
I think one of the take-home messages from the study is women could probably afford to be more aspirational in their mate pursuit.
They also found that both men and women, but especially women, write longer messages to more desirable partners. So are those wasted words?
And what was interesting is that it doesn't seem to pay off for women. The only group for whom this pays off is men in Seattle.
And for everyone else, the big picture is this.
We don't have to sort of stab around in the dark or, behave based on some beliefs or norms about what's appropriate. We could actually know if our strategies are working and adjust our behavior accordingly.
In other words, better data could mean better dating. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
Welcome to 60-Second Civics from the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. When a person has been convicted of a criminal or civil violation, how do we deal with the perpetrator? Corrective justice refers to the fairness of responses to wrongs or injuries. However, fair responses to wrongs and to injuries may vary widely. In some cases, one may ignore what has happened, forgive the person causing the wrong or injury, or use the situation to educate the person to prevent a repetition of the event. In other situations, one might wish to require a person to compensate in one way or another for a wrong or injury done to others. In some instances, courts of law may punish wrongdoers by fines, imprisonment, or even death. Corrective justice has one principal goal: the fair correction of a wrong or injury. In addition, we may want to prevent or discourage future wrongful or careless conduct by teaching a lesson to the wrongdoer or making an example of him or her. Thus, the goals of corrective justice are correction, prevention, and deterrence. These concepts are essential to the very existence of society. Without efforts to serve these goals, disorder and chaos may result. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
You can help stop the Trump agenda in its tracks. Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org. And on November 6th, vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
A federal judge on Thursday threatened to hold Attorney General Jeff Sessions in contempt after learning the Trump administration attempted to transfer a woman and her daughter out of the country while an appeals hearing for their deportation was underway. MSNBC's Nicole Wallace and Jacob Soboroff have more.
This was a case that was brought by the ACLU with 8 plaintiffs in Washington, D.C., challenging the Attorney General's much stricter rules and regulations for actually claiming asylum now if you want to stay in the United States. And that involves no longer being able to bring claims as you once were with regard to domestic violence and gang violence. Some of the main drivers that people flee places like El Salvador and Honduras and Guatemala to come to the United States for. And so to hear this judge today, I didn't actually listen into the case, but to read the transcript, to read what he said, and in fact, I want to just read you a little bit of it. He said, in its rush to deport as many immigrants as possible, the Trump administration is putting these women and children in grave danger of being raped, beaten, or killed. And he quite literally said to the government, get these people back here as soon as you can. You can't deport plaintiffs in the middle of a case when we're adjudicating this rule in the first place.
I was reading from the transcript as well. He said this is pretty outrageous. His name is U.S. District Judge Emmett G. Sullivan. And just to pick up on just his personal reaction, I'm not happy about this at all. This is not acceptable. I mean, is he an outlier? Has this been the reaction in other cases that have ended up before federal judges?
No, actually, it hasn't. Nicole, it's a great question. Dana Sabra, who's adjudicating the Miss L case, which is the case about family separations here in California, just last week called the government's plan, or lack of a plan, I guess we should say, to reunite the remaining 572 kids that were separated from their parents by the Trump administration, quote unquote, unacceptable. And quite literally, in an hour and 15 minutes from now, we're expecting the government to file, because the judge ordered them in a separate case, a new point person to reunite the remaining 572 kids that are still out there over 2 months after we first got inside those facilities down in South Texas and got a look at what the separated kids have gone through.
There are still 2 unresolved contests from Tuesday's primary and special elections. In the Republican primary for governor in Kansas, Secretary of State Chris Kobach's lead over incumbent Governor Jeff Colyer dwindled after election officials discovered a mistake in the tally. As Secretary of State, Kobach oversees the vote counting. The governor called on him to step aside, and Kobach said late on Thursday during an interview with CNN that he would remove himself from the tally process while the Republican primary outcome hangs in the balance. Kansas is still counting absentee and provisional ballots, and the race remains too close to call. The state has until August 20th to finish. Meanwhile, the House special election in Ohio's 12th district is also still too close to call, although Republican Troy Balderson is expected to hold on to the solidly Republican district that has been in GOP hands for the past 35 years. Balderson leads Democrat Danny O'Connor by just over 1,000 votes, less than 1%. The state is still counting absentee and provisional ballots. If the margin shrinks to 0.5 percentage point, it would trigger an automatic recount. Either way, Republicans don't think the race should have been this close and are panicking over what it means for their election prospects in November.
My administration is reclaiming America's heritage as the world's greatest spacefaring nation. We very well may soon have the Space Force. You've been hearing about that. And we're actually thinking of a 6th, and that would be the Space Force. Does that make sense? The Space Force, General. You probably haven't even heard that. I'm just telling you now.
Vice President Mike Pence has outlined the administration's goal of creating a 6th branch of the U.S. military by 2020, known as the Space Force.
Now the time has come to write the next great chapter in the history of our armed forces, to prepare for the next battlefield, where America's best and bravest will be called to deter and defeat a new generation of threats to our people, to our nation. The time has come to establish the United States Space Force.
Day 8 of the Paul Manafort trial began with the judge apologizing in open court for scolding prosecutors the day before.
This all stems from something that happened yesterday. The prosecution had a witness that they called, it was an IRS expert, who happened to be sitting in the courtroom through the trial. When they called that witness, and that witness said that they had been sitting in the courtroom during the entire trial, the judge scolded the prosecutors essentially for allowing this witness to sit there through this trial, listening to other witnesses testifying. And then the prosecutors reminded the judge that it was his own permission. They had asked him for permission to do so, and he allowed it. And then this morning, as you said, they went ahead and they filed a motion with the court requesting that he apologize to them and to the jury. See, the issue here really is that this was all happening in front of the jury, and certainly their perception of what they're seeing by the way the judge is reacting to this could affect their ultimate decision. And that is why the prosecutors wanted the judge this morning to apologize, which he did. You know, this judge is quickly becoming the story in this case. It just continues to go after prosecutors. And just a reminder, this is the same judge who went after the special counsel in bringing this case. The idea that perhaps, he was suggesting that they were only doing this to go after Paul Manafort to get him to cooperate.
And that's a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is fully listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. Former Chilean President Michelle Bachelet has been tapped to steer the UN's global human rights agenda, positioning her to become one of the most outspoken voices on a range of crises, spanning Syria to Yemen, Myanmar to South Sudan. Bachelet will take over from Jordan's Prince Zayed Ra'ad Al Hussein, who became UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in 2014 and developed a reputation as a straight talker willing to call out the U.S. and other countries, big and small.
He was very open, very eloquent, and very open to criticize governments when they were violating human rights. I think that has to continue.
Renzo Palmi is Amnesty International's representative to the UN in New York and says Bachelet's familiarity with other world leaders could give her added cachet, particularly if she chooses to push back against heads of state, cracking down on rights activists or the free press.
I think with the stature that Michelle Bachelet has, she should work with states to make sure that civil society, NGOs, and human rights offenders are able to participate and contribute as they have been doing for so many years.
Should she master the art of highlighting rights abuses in her public statements, Bachelet will still have to confront structural issues that complicate the UN's human rights goals. For one, the Security Council is as divided as ever, with veto-wielding countries like the U.S. and Russia shielding their allies from international justice. Then there's America's recent withdrawal from the Human Rights Council in Geneva, a move the Trump administration pinned on the Council's alleged anti-Israel bias. But Palmi says Bachelet can only do so much, and it's the responsibility of countries, ultimately, to change the UN system.
States shouldn't put all the burden on her. It's the role of states to provide as the resources and the political will.
Luke Vargas, the United Nations.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, of course, and we will be getting on with weather from around the world in just a moment. I have been suffering from a bit of an allergy fit from all this terrible, terrible smoke. So if you hear me being a bit stuffed up, or hopefully in the Bistro Cafe I wasn't sniffling too much. It's not a disease, but boy, allergy sure kicked me in the rear today. So I apologize, all right? Right now, weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America. It is currently 67 degrees. We will be going to a high of 97. 95 to 97. Compared to what it's been, it was in triple digits for a bit here, so it seems like it'll be cooler. Right now it's partly cloudy. The winds are out of the south-southeast about 1 to 2 miles per hour. Of course, they increase to 5 to 10 miles per hour as normal, except this time they'll be increasing to 10 to 15 miles per hour rather than their normal 5 to 10. And they will be out of the west-northwest and will continue so through the evening, though we will have a small 20% chance of precipitation tonight, and we hope so. Low near 60 overnight, which means in where the mothership here is, more like the mid-60s. Let's see. So we will be partly cloudy. Dry conditions will continue. I just hope that we get some rain. 20% is always that's you can almost hang your hat on that with hope. Relative humidity is at 60%. High pressure has been dominating, though there is a low pressure system trying to push through. Pressure right now is at 29.92 inches. Visibility is down to 5 miles because of all the smoke. We are under an active air quality alert. Air quality is in the very unhealthy at 230 parts per million. The UV index, the daytime UV, is at 8, which is very high. So put some sunscreen on. All right, weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Oh, wow. London is 64 degrees, light rain with lightning and thunder. Paris is no data. Darn you. Rome is no data. And Kiev is no data. But I will tell you that they are under heat advisories, and maybe it's so hot that it knocked out their sensors there. Kabul is 92 degrees and fair, which is bad weather if you're having a wedding party because, drones could be finding you in that clear weather. Hong Kong, no data. Tokyo, no data, except I can tell you that they have thunderstorms in both Hong Kong and Tokyo, and maybe it knocked out their weather stations there. Sydney, Australia is 56 degrees and sunny. San Francisco, California is 52 and partly cloudy, and they do have an air quality advisory because of wildfire smoke blowing their way. And New York is 80 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny, as the Big Apple should be. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Starting off here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the diner of life. Here, have a French 77. Alan Pike brings us this offering here, and he is out of Think Progress. This district judge, Mark Derrick, is running an egregiously unconstitutional debtor's prison in Arkansas and bragging about it. A new lawsuit documents. The dirt poor residents of a hard scrabble Arkansas county are routinely sent to jail for being broke, by a judge who makes $147,000 a year. Well, Judge Mark Derrick routinely violates core principles of the Constitution and sometimes even flouts black letter laws of the state itself. A lawsuit filed Thursday by the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law says Derrick's practices help keep the White County Detention Center, I'm not making this up, that's the name of it, White County Detention Center, filled to bursting, although the Constitution forbids the jailing of people simply for being too poor to pay fines. The law therefore requires judges to ascertain a person's realistic ability to repay court debts before establishing fine levels and payment schedules. Thousands of people unlucky enough to get a traffic ticket or other minor violations in Derrick's 23rd Judicial District have been repeatedly tossed into cells for missing payments scheduled without any regard to their income, the suit says. For every 3 days Kimberly Snodgrass has been alive in the past 4 years, she spent one in White County Jail thanks to Derrick's practices. Snodgrass is one of 6 named plaintiffs in the suit, but lawyers are bringing it as a class action on behalf of what they say are more than 20,000 similarly afflicted locals. Well, it looks like Derrick convicted Ms. Snodgrass of 10 separate failure to pay charges since September of 2014. Each time ordering her jailed for 30 days and adding between $450 and $670 in new fines to her account. She can't pay the original fines now. Okay. She lost 2 jobs and has been evicted from 4 different houses as a result, all without Derrick ever even inquiring as to how much money she has, how much she expected to earn, or what kind of monthly payments she could actually afford to make. Now, Derrick, whose only previous brush with internet headlines came when he was bitten by his father's pet zebra in 2015, automatically imposes such 1-month incarceration terms pursuant to his personal zero-tolerance policy. It's always nice when judges have their own zero tolerance. Sort of like Judge Roy Bean. The 30-day sentences are his ironclad policy on non-payment mandates, are twice the sentence incurred by the most serious category of crimes his court is empowered to adjudicate. Class A misdemeanors. That means he's treating poverty as twice the sin of the most serious statutory crimes under his purview. And even more egregiously, he campaigned on a promise to let Class A misdemeanor convicts serve their 15-day terms on weekends only so as to minimize the disruption of their lives. All while forcing the 30-day sentences for brokenness to be served continuously, all but ensuring that one of his judicial victims, who has managed to secure the work they need to begin paying the fines he ordered, will lose that job. Jesus. I know my fines are a lot higher than other judges, Derrick told the local Searcy Daily Citizen. I have a policy. Stay out of trouble for 4 years. Make your monthly payments. If they can do that for 4 years, they can do that for the rest of their lives. Kind of hard to do it when you're in jail, though. Wouldn't you say, Derrick? I try to hammer them at the front end and make them want to change. Then I give them incentive. Well, that's very interesting. Derrick's court practices don't just make a mockery of the founding documents, its prohibitions on criminalizing poverty, and of the Arkansas misdemeanor statute. He's also, at least on one occasion, continued to jail people under state laws that were already deemed unconstitutional for similar reasons a year earlier. Constitutional restrictions? Who needs constitutional restrictions?
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Noor Al-Sabai from Raw Story brings us this last offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Now move over, Pizzagate. Portland's famous Voodoo Doughnut is a new home to a far-right child sex ring conspiracy theory. Media Matters reports that the famous donut chain is the center of a new conspiracy theory akin to Pizzagate. Of course, another unsubstantiated far-right battle cry whose believers claimed Hillary Clinton and other Democrats used a Washington, D.C. pizzeria as a front for a pedophilia ring, and somebody actually came there and shot the place up with little kids inside. In a lengthy video published by fringe right-wing YouTuber Nathan Stolpenmund on August 4th, a man who identified himself by the name Michael Whalen claimed he saw signs of sexually abused children when attending a party at Voodoo co-founder Trey Shannon's house in Portland, Oregon. To substantiate his claim, Whalen said he had been eyewitness to children taken back at Shannon's home, reiterated there was abuse of children going on, and linked Voodoo to Comet Pizza, the D.C. pizzeria at the heart of the Pizzagate conspiracy. The man also claimed people who worked at the Oregon donut chain also used to work at Comet Pizza, which is only 2,700 miles apart. I wonder if this Whalen guy writes in Cyrillic. I wonder. After expressing his dissatisfaction with the alleged pedophilia at Shannon's house, Whalen said he's been subject to constant death threats. He claims to have gone to the police, but had his reports ignored in the days since the video was published. Media Matters noted internet followers of the QAnon conspiracy have latched on to the theory they're now calling Donut Gate. Please help me, please. And QAnon, I guess, is directed towards boomers of a certain age, like around my age, who apparently are prone to this. And I don't know, was it Agent Orange? or was it, I don't know, Hollywood Squares and The Price is Right? I have no idea how these people allow themselves to fall this low and this far, that they have absolutely no discerning critical thinking skills. My generation? Yikes. All right, we better get out of here. I am suffering from these allergies terribly. I need to go clear my nasal cavities. I'm sorry for telling you that, but I have to. And we will be back with you on Monday, of course, for River City Hash Mondays. Netroots Radio broadcasts on through the day for breaking news and breaking news throughout the weekend. And live feeds will keep you up to date as that occurs, and also live shows for Netroots Radio. Stay tuned to Netroots Radio throughout the day and the weekend. And we will visit with you on Monday here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma robe à fleurs sous la pluie d'un novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin l'âge tendre, nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.